The Superman series continues. Here we are, your favorite hosts back again, Isaac and Caleb, your super pals, I'll say. And we're once again covering another Superman comic, although hopefully this time not a two-part 4-hour long discussion, because this time we're only covering one single issue. It's from the Joe Kelly run. What year was this?
2001.
2001. Okay. Yeah, and this is issue from Action Comics 775. What's so funny about truth, justice, and the American way?
March 2001, just for more reference.
There you go. Yeah, not quite the big month from that year, but a month.
I hope you're not referring to what I think you're referring to.
I am. Yes, maybe I shouldn't have gone there.
Oh boy. Other than it being my cousin's birthday by that month and my great grandmother's birthday. Anyways, so as per tradition, I guess, as we journey through this DC retrospective or just doing comic book reviews, we'll be doing Superman versus the Elite after this. But of course, because we want to educate ourselves over the source, we go to the source, and that is this one, as Caleb mentioned before.
Yeah, and what I like about this case, because sometimes I wonder about the value of us doing it this way, because the whole purpose of this series at the start was to review the DC animated films. That was all this other stuff was just kind of a bonus that we eventually added. So frequently when we do these comics first, I feel like we're in a way sabotaging the hopes for us liking these movies, because it's like, how could the 75-minute long movie compare to the depth that we get in these, sometimes 4 to 10 issue arcs. So that I feel bad for the movies in the way that they're set up with that monkey on their shoulder at the start of it. But in this case, being that they're adapting a single issue, I feel like that this might be the rare case where it doesn't set them up for disaster, because maybe they would have enough room to expand and stuff here. So that interests me. I'm very curious about that film.
We will have to wait and see for that. We will give Superman vs. Elite its fair dues, and yes, I have to treat those films as their own thing. However, the elephant in the room obviously is that they come from their adaptations, whereas this is the source itself. But every adaptation should be able to stand on its own, regardless of how faithful it is to the source material.
And speaking of the source material, is this something that you'd read before or had much knowledge of coming in? Because I'll say for me, I'd never heard of Superman versus the Elite. I had never heard of this comic issue, or I didn't even know that Joe Kelly did a Superman run. So I was quite interested to see that.
My history with this is I know what Superman versus the Elite is. I've watched it, although it was quite a long time ago, probably 10 years ago, or whenever, some in between that time period. And as for the comic book, I knew it was obviously, well, it had to be based off of a comic book, because I don't really know if many of these, well, at least I haven't experienced any of these DC animated films being original, and not just adapting from a source. Again, how much adaptation the word adaptation is to the movie is another thing, but or to the source. But as for the comic book itself, what's so funny about Truth, Justice, and the American Way? I read this only 2 hours ago.
But at least you read it twice. I read it yesterday only the once. So you've gotten up on me there. Hopefully your second pass through will give you some more insight than I've got.
There was a bit of confusion when I read it the first time, and so I needed to read it a second time just to realize all the setups, payoffs, and understand it from the end as I read it from the beginning, and I think it did help for me.
Well, I guess we should probably jump into it here, and we're starting off at the I guess we want to talk about the cover before we jump into the first page.
I suppose we will talk about the cover, but first, ladies and gentlemen, those in between and unaffiliated, get your timers ready and get your bets placed, because well, actually, it's kind of a moot point because you already know what the time span of this is.
Exactly. Yes.
But for me, myself, and I am going to time myself on this, even though I know there's a recording happening in progress. But I still want to time this because I'm notorious, very notorious, for just leaving the microphone on and talking up like just everything. So I'm going to time myself for this just to see how long this is actually going to take.
Yeah, and I'll play my usual role of trying to speed it along, even though in this case I don't think I need to, just out of principle for how long that last one went. So
This is fair. All right, I'm about to hit my timer in 3, 2, 1, start. Okay, that's going on there, and I'm also going to forget about it later on. So because I don't want my phone to run out of time. I should have just done it on my computer. Anyways, so
there you go. 5 a.m.
it's like, why is my phone battery dead? Oh, that's why. So we start off with Superman in Action Comics, but it's still Action Comics. Just, I guess, retitled it separately. And the one we're reading from on our Kindles is, I guess, from the collection from 1938 to 2011, the
Mm.
beginning of the DC New 52.
Oh yes, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. But yes, we start with Superman, doing his usual thing, just taking to the skies, flying around. And I guess in this case, he's heading to Libya because of this terrorist action that's taking place. And we get these little bits of news clips that he's hearing as he's flying, which I always love to see those little illustrations of his powers. That as he's on his way to a case, he's listening to any updates on the radio waves. I think that's really cool. But then when he arrives there, yeah, I guess he takes off from 5 a.m. and gets there at 12 p.m. That's interesting. Takes off from Metropolis. Takes him that long to get to Libya.
This may be my own read on it, but I assume that this was him. Maybe this is a little bit ignorant, but this was me thinking like he's doing instead of going for like a jog around the earth, he's doing like some errands around the earth to like prevent any disasters or stop other coups or other, problems that's happening on the grounds. And then he eventually gets to Libya, which when I say that does kind of sound a little bit like, shouldn't you take this Libya thing seriously and have high priority over it, all over all the others?
Heh. Yeah, no, I did. I mean, maybe I just don't know the exact distance, but I was a little bit surprised by that. I mean, this guy, he's super fast, and I even wondered, would it have been faster to fly out of the planet's atmosphere and go outside through space with no sort of interference there? I don't know if he can travel faster in space, but
I can't. I shouldn't immediately bring pre-existent expectations with Superman, just like I do when we were doing the Justice League stuff, where it's just like, how come these guys are beating the snot out of and tar out of Superman? Like this shouldn't be happening. Where my brain immediately goes, shouldn't he be faster? Like he's nearly as fast as the Flash, so this shouldn't be that like he should be there in like 2 seconds or something like that. But then of course I'm thinking like, okay, I gotta like hold on there, buddy. You gotta like calm yourself, calm your horses there, hold your horses. You have to think this may be just a different continuity, even though it's still in the same like mainline DC Action Comics. So
exactly. Yeah, this is. But anyway, yeah, maybe we're spending too long on this first page.
yeah,
But
no, I'm already being a hypocrite, and I'm already like overanalyzing something that shouldn't be necessary.
yeah, so he arrives in Tripoli to untold disaster. I mean, I guess what was attacking them was this giant monkey, cyborg monkey, which, by the way,
It's a gorilla.
gorilla. So I apologize. Yeah, if this
Yeah,
was,
no, remember an ape, not
yeah,
monkey. Remember DC and their apes.
yeah, I was about to say this another DC simian. They love their simian folks, but yeah, it's just like a King Kong type. Like this guy's huge and he's got a big machine gun, and yeah, he's been dealt a slaughtering hand, as it were.
Literally. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's Titano or cyborg or robot or monkey. I don't even want to know. I almost said monkey. Or some form of like just enhanced giant gorilla that had these machine parts onto him or whatever. But this is kind of icky. It's there's a lot of blood stains, which is kind of surprising. But I guess that DC was a bit lenient around this time with this kind of stuff.
Oh yes, they were. Yeah, the early aughts and the late '90s. Yeah, were the gritty period for DC and Marvel. But I feel like DC was even pushing it a little bit more.
Huh? Who would have thought that? Yeah, during it's called the Dark Age of comic books, right? Or Dork Age, as some people call it. And of course, it's
Huh.
the '90s, so everything has to be extreme.
Yeah, like his gun is so gigantic. Look how you can see Superman's tiny little form there. Like him compared to that gun. It's just absurd. It really is absurd.
Wait, I'm noticing. Maybe I'm wrong on this. I notice a lack of shoulder pads and too many bandoliers. Who the hey drew this? Rob Liefeld wasn't involved in this. What's going on here?
Yeah, I did want to comment about this guy. I don't actually know how to pronounce his name. Doug Mahenke, maybe?
Oh yes, one of the writers, one of the artists. Excuse me.
Yes. Oh, was there more than one in this book?
I think there
Maybe.
was. I'm just gonna quickly go back and
Sure.
check. Yeah, there was at least. I'll actually have to skip to the last page. Give me a second here.
Sure.
There's Doug Mahanke. I think. Apologies. I'm pretty sure that's how you would say it. And there's
Yeah, hopefully.
Liebermeno, I believe, is the other penciler in this case.
Oh. Um.
If you
Hmm.
go to your last page, you'll see it, like in the credits.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I don't know who to credit for that bit there, but I do like that image, even though it is a little bit over the top and a little bit. It does look very dated in its way. I still think it's a cool two-page spread.
Oh yeah, no, like to these guys, like I'm pretty much I'm feeling it with their art in this case. It's not the art that not a fan of from the '90s, even though this is the aughts or the early aughts. But even still, like this is a really good two-page spread. Um, despite how graphic it may be, it's like nah, it looks good. Got to give credit to
Hmm.
words, and of course also the colorists. I got to give them credit too for
There you
making the
go.
blood like really red. Um, but anyway, so yeah. Anyways, see,
Yes.
we went
Oh
off topic and
God.
all that stuff, and just love hearing the sound of my own voice, right? Um,
Yeah.
I don't actually. But anyways, yeah. So Soups arrives, and whether because he was slow to get there or some other reason, yeah, it looks like whole city's on fire, and yeah, I don't all the property damage, as Sean would say. Like, good grief, who's paying for all this?
Yeah, and who caused all this? I mean, clearly the ape. He played his role, but the devastation and the brutal execution was taken part by somebody that Superman is immediately at odds with. And I think it's interesting that we learn about these folks, the elite, pretty much right after that, but they never really give us much backstory until very near the end of the book. And so the whole time I was wondering, like, did this elite, were they something that was building in this Joe Kelly arc? I didn't look it up until I finished reading it. And no, this is their first appearance. So it's kind of interesting that they really don't handhold the audience for introducing these guys.
Yeah, like out of nowhere, as if there was, as if they were coming off of another book, or there was another hot ticket item happening in the comic world. They just bam come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They're some sort of I don't know take on another pre-existing team. I'm hinting at something. By the way,
Ah.
also not only sorry, I shouldn't stay up, but just in the text, it also mentions in the two-page spread about how the power and the scale of this like devastation and this like whoever these people were that like killed this giant gorilla, um, also obliterated, at least per the text as it says, obliterated the entire Libyan defense force. Like, oh
Hmm.
man, so we're dealing with somebody who, like, or either a group of people or somebody who's quite powerful, who's able to do that.
Yeah, and we see on the next page that Jimmy's reading, I guess, an early draft of, I think it's Clark's article on this. I think Clark was the one who wrote it, and he called them small gods. So yeah, that's an illustration. Or maybe it wasn't Clark. Who do you think wrote that?
Well, they okay, okay. That was the thing because some of these early stuff, I made literally, I don't know why. Like, I'm not saying Joe Kelly's uh, writing is all gibberish or at least scatterbrained, but there's a lot of dialogue here that I had to like. And maybe if I had read a lot more of his Superman run, I would have like gotten used to this. But
Mm.
or maybe it's just a how comics worked back in 2001. I actually have no idea. Um, we really haven't we haven't been doing a lot of like 80s 90s or different comic runs to be honest here. We've only been doing like modern stuff like in the
Pretty
21st
much.
century, so I can't really say much of it. I guess the only thing we did in the '90s was Grant Morrison's Justice League with Earth 2 and Tower of Babel. Anyway, sorry. I thought it was this newspaper or I don't know newscast called The Star.
Oh, maybe that was an error on the yeah, maybe that was an error on just the illustration because it looked like it was a draft. It didn't look like it was an already published newspaper.
Oh yeah, maybe perhaps it is Clark's report. I don't know.
Mm.
He got there pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah, especially compared to yeah, that is weird. But either way, we see that yeah, the Daily Planet crew is in a bit of an uproar. They don't like the framing of these guys as heroes, and Clark especially, like right from the start, seems like he despises these guys and what they represent as a kind of vigilante troop. These four superpower beings who don't mind causes some brutality to get things done.
Taking the law into their own hands, as if there was no sanctioned laws that we have declared in this industrialized, globalized planet or world.
Yeah, and I don't think we get all the names at the start, but very quickly they establish that it's led by someone named Manchester Black, which gives you a hint right at the start that he's going to be a Brit, and then they go full bore with that as we go along. But
We'll get into that, but we jump from the Daily Planet over to Libya, where we see Clark. I guess communicating or like maybe this is what it is. Like it's a machine that he's faxing
mm,
his like because it's a weird futuristic camera television device. I don't know, circa
yeah,
2001 that may or may not be fact. Like he's typing it in. He's typing on the computer there, and maybe he's sending like his draft or whatever over to Daily Planet instantly as a fax. I don't know. Like, hey,
yeah,
it kind of makes the fax machine like relevant again, I suppose.
there you go. Yeah, relevant again back in 2001.
Yes,
But
potentially.
but yeah, and is he there interviewing this guy, or is he just overhearing the interviews? I guess he does jump in. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of people in the room. I assume they're reporters because I can see a guy behind Jack Ryder who has a camera on him. So I assume this is like some press conference of either a statement from the Libyan military or something else. I don't know. And yeah, it's Jack Ryder. And I believe he's part of this, this newscast or media corp called or media conglomerate
Yeah.
called uh,
Scrum.
Scrum, or that was a Star.
Oh, like press scrum. I mean, with all the
Oh,
people doing
press
their
Scrum. That's
interviews and things.
oh, thank you. Okay, that's what it's called. I didn't know that.
Heh. Yeah. Okay. That's right. This the guy in the blue suit is the reporter. I guess the one who wrote that article that they were all pissed off about.
Potentially, that's what I was thinking. Is like, is this Is that Jack Ryder's draft or something else? Like, did they have inside scoop on this? I don't know.
Yeah. Again, so maybe that might have just been a an error on the part of the illustrators because yeah, that definitely looked like a draft when it was meant to be a finished article because Clark's like, finish your article, Jack. It's so slanted a carpenter couldn't fix it. And then he's yeah raging in his face, screaming in his face even about the elites are murderers and how could you celebrate them as heroes and yeah that. And I will say at the start of this, not having read Joe Kelly's arc, not really knowing what was going on with his Superman, this guy's got a big B in his bonnet right at the start, and he it takes a little while for me to come to terms with how angry this Clark is, and it's like there's no sort of sense of optimism here. This is my opinion's right, and anyone who disagrees, I'm coming for you, kind of thing. That's a
Yeah,
bit much.
yeah, it's certainly something. But again, I think I should also probably say like you're a lot more familiar with Joe Kelly than I am, given who he's written for.
Yeah, famous for his Deadpool work, and to be honest, I've not read a ton of his Deadpool stuff. I'm much more familiar with the later runs of Deadpool, and some of the early Joe Kelly stuff. Maybe the first 10 issues or so I've read, but yeah, not a he's not someone that I have a ton of familiarity with.
Never mind. I thought you had read all his run, but I was mistaken.
No, unfortunately not. Yeah, by the time I really got into buying a lot of Deadpool comics and stuff, his early stuff was not really available anymore. And then when it did become available, it was in big omnibuses, and it was right around when I stopped buying omnibuses. So it was just unfortunate luck that just led me to not read his comics.
This all
But
checks out. Um, but anyway, I guess moving forward, yeah, there is that, and yeah, whether Clark is quick to show his emotions in any of Joe's previous stories and future stories. Again, we should at least hold off on that because we haven't read it. So, but at
exactly,
least,
yeah,
yeah. And initial thoughts here that yeah, he's quick. Clark, excuse me, is quick to just immediately like get angry. So it's like, whoa, okay, what's going on here with that? I mean, maybe it's because what he saw kind of disturbed him, and so he's lashing out at Ryder for not taking the situation seriously as to the amount of tragedy that happened in Libya. Excuse me. So maybe that's why. I don't know if I can say that justifies it, but there's potential for reasoning there.
yeah. That could be, but I do feel like they also call attention to, and this is something that comes up throughout the book as well. In this first page, when we see the media scrum and Clark raging at this Jack Ryder, I think you said, we see that at the end of the page they mark it with "The age of Superman is over, Viva the Elite," and Clark has this look in his eyes, and it's hard to tell if that's just the outrage at their tactics or if there's a little bit of ego there, and we'll come into more of that as we go along as well.
We shall. Moving forward, sir.
Yeah, we cut over to the White House. This is a period where Lex is the president of the United States, and because of Smallville and a couple of random bits of oh, I can't remember. I think it was the Kurt Busiek Superman action comic stuff that I've got. Yeah, I just think of Lex as the president. That's just something that's always in my head, and so to see it here is like, hey, we're back in my wheelhouse. This is what I like to see. Even though I'm curious how well that actually works, since I've not read like a full run of him as the president. It does seem like an odd turn, but
I think it's a cool idea. There's a lot of fictitious cities, excuse me, inside DC. So why not just have some of their characters also become um, presidents or leaders of the free world or whatever have you?
mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see he's going over the poll results. Like, okay, where should I fall here? It seems like the populace are generally in favor of these elites or the elite, I should say, not the not the these elites. And yeah, he's got Amanda Waller there with him. I guess is his right hand woman, which is not a great sign.
Well, I just took it as she and Argus, they're under the United States government, so she's a person who would advise Lex under, like, I guess her um form of government, not government, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
but under what how not house, excuse me, but whatever party she, not party, I forget, I'm sorry, I can't think right now what it's called, but whatever, she represents Argus, and if they're like Shield and they strategize over they also specialize with superheroes or metahumans, excuse me, that's her department. There we go. She represents the department, and so she's like giving Lex all the info on the elites right now.
And I do like that, even though Lex seems very interested in the prospect of them potentially rivaling Superman and what that could mean for his goals going forward. But he puts out a nice little PR thing of like, okay, put out a statement saying that we condemn all violence, and we'll just wait and see what happens. And hopefully they'll just keep going after the metahumans. So, yeah, calculating, this is the Lex I like to see. I think this was a good little scene for him.
I agree with that. So we'll see what actually we won't see what happens with that.
Yes. But you take away the next page.
Got it. So we go to what I assume is the Fortress of Solitude. I guess it is the spaceship. Why not? Again, adaptation. Quite the interesting one, I'll say that. It looks like the map from Treasure Planet. Maybe a bit different than that, but still.
I kind of wondered if this was like a type of watchtower or something,
Maybe,
like watch orb.
but the fact that I see what looks to be like two Kryptonian outfits on the top part of the page, and then like I don't know, a planet that may or may not be Krypton, and then like some form of like structure there that could be religious potentially. It's like I'm assuming. Sorry, but like my base reaction is this is the Fortress of Solitude.
But is it that little orb that we see at the top of the screen? Or the top of the page, I should say. Sorry, everyone.
Panel, yeah, of course.
Yes, reading on a device that is a screen, not
Yeah,
in print. So
of course.
yeah, I thought that little orb that was like a what'd you call that? Establishing shot that that's what they're in.
Oh yeah, like in the first one where it's like we do not believe in nations like that. I assumed
Exactly.
I thought that was the Forces of Solitude.
Oh, okay, okay. But either way, that he's Clark's there. They're trying to find out some information about these guys, and I guess the elite released some sort of manifesto online.
Cyberpunks or cypherpunks, I believe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and manifestos online. Well, maybe I won't go into that. Yeah, maybe I should. I'll just avoid that.
Yeah, of course.
More ugly U.S. history, but we do see that Soups is there. He's working on the looking up about these guys with a certain hero here who looks similar to Superman and maybe still a leftover from a certain arc that we'll be getting to near the end of this run.
I guess it just helps the fact that like people complain like, oh, he needs to have a sidekick or something. I'm not saying Steel is a sidekick, but you just need somebody there to help him like talk things over and keep him grounded. Which I agree with. Steel is like one of the persons other than like the his parents and Lois and Jimmy and other people to keep him grounded. I think he's a definite candidate. So glad Steel's there.
Yeah, and maybe I was just thinking of the Watchtower in the beginning. I thought he was a member of the Justice League, and that's why they were there together. And John was just kind of helping him out. But I will say it I do like this scene. Speaking of still kind of keeping him grounded, because he's pointing out like they're tough stuff. Like right there they rival you, and I think that's a good scene between the two of them, and Superman having to face the fact that he could have a weakness here against them.
Not just weakness, but potentially be obsolete.
Oh, elite, you say?
Yes, obsolete.
Yeah, and we don't get too much of Steel in this book. I wish we got, or at least his history, I should say. He may be a regular in this book, but I wish we got a little more of him here. I liked seeing him, and yeah, I wish we could have seen more of their dynamic in this little sample that we have here.
That's what you want of supporting cast members. You want to like give them just enough so that you leave the readers wanting more.
Yeah. But their talk gets interrupted because there's some things going down in Japan, and so Soups takes this guys to go figure it out. But yeah, so I like this stuff too. The shots of him flying over the water, and I didn't know what this like was. That his eyes that looked like robot eyes? I thought that was kind of strange.
Well, first off, he like leaves. Okay, it's weird because he zips away from like the Fortress of Solitude or wherever, but it looks like Metropolis in this panel, which is hilarious. Um, but he gets to Tokyo fairly quickly, so
Yeah.
my confusion over how fast he travels in this series once
Yes.
again, or in this comic once again comes up, but putting aside, sorry, relevant. But what I assume again, I liked the as Caleb mentioned before that there's all these like it's not full on talking heads a la 80s or turns, but all this radio chatter, all
Yeah.
these broadcasts that are like mentioning what's happening with either the elite or other stuff, and either maybe some not thought balloons. So there we go, but what the eyes are the sudden like red tint over Superman's eyes. I assume is from the next panel where we see a bomb or wave of destruction, EMP blast. I don't know, like slam into him. So that's what I assume because we then see like the shockwave from Tokyo hits him and then it falls to the earth. I That's what I'm assuming he saw.
I guess that's fair. Yeah. It just the eyes look so weird. I was like, what is that? Superman's eyes? Looks like robot eyes or something, but may have just been again kind of interesting illustration choices.
I think it is because this means nothing, but I noticed his nose is almost like shaped the same, so I'm like, that's Superman.
That's fair. That's fair. And of course the corresponding panel makes it clear, but either way he crash lands, and when he finally climbs out of the burning rubble, we discover the first visage of the elite. Or I guess not the elite. These are the bad guys. That's right. Because I was shifting the page, and I got over. I was like, wait, that's not the elite at all.
Yeah, he comes out of this wrecked car, and all of a sudden we see like these six different metahumans that most likely are the cause of this like blast or this explosion and or this attack. And so before his very eyes, as soon as he like kind of regains consciousness, he sees these villains or these attackers or whatever start getting ripped apart in half one by one by some unknown force.
Yes. Yeah, and yeah, these folks. I mean, I like the image when we first see them all, but they look like fools. They look like the group that would get torn apart. We got the Iceman with his two swords. We got the guy who looks like he's just wearing some sort of weird lizard costume. And I won't comment on some of the other ones. But yeah, they just get torn apart like a couple of fools. So
I'm gonna correct myself, but I'll correct myself in a minute because I just realized what that wave of energy or blast was. Anyways, yeah.
sure.
So they, yeah, seemingly get to, and at the same time, the narration gets broken or scatterbrained, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, having read this the second time, like I think I know what this is. Now I can't tell if this is Clark's thoughts or if this is Black narrating.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
I think it's Clark's thoughts because I might know what's happened, but I maybe I'll put a pin in that. But so as to say, yeah, the narration here made me confused, and for some reason, all these images, while I was like, okay, what's happening? The sense of direction, but I think that was intentional. I think Kelly staged it so that he told the. I don't know if it's the same. It's not the Marvel method. I know that, but I wonder if he told the artists to make the page seem chaotic and like out of continuity. Not out of continuity, excuse me, but have the continuity be all over the place because just so that we experience what Clark is experiencing right now.
Yeah, and I'll say that is something that he would feature in his Deadpool stuff, the stuff that I've read at least. Yeah, he would play into a chaotic style of writing to, but that fits Deadpool because Deadpool is yeah a chaotic type of character. So
Unorthodox, non-linear. I don't know what you would call it.
yeah, but either way, I think this is a cool little scene, especially the ice guy with his swords. I think he is quite the vibrant image. Just the colorists, especially, I think they did a good job, really making him pop.
But unfortunately, the Job Squad is has played their part, and before like for Superman's eyes, we see that he also is obliterated, shattered, and thus we turn the page to see the Elite
Yep, we've got alien plant looking poison ivy style lady at the bottom with some xenomorph.
menagerie.
Yeah, xenomorph looking guys. At least one of them looks like that on her. We've got another magician type who's drinking a little beer keg there. I don't remember his name.
I think his name's Hat. I probably am
Pat,
incorrect in that,
yes.
but I believe that yeah, he's a mage and he has access to. I think with his magic, he kind of looks like the Phantom Stranger. But it's like I assume everything like he can pull something out of his hat and gets it in there. So I assume that some sort of like yeah, frost or beer of some sorts coming out of there. Who do we have next?
Yeah, then in the middle we have the leader, Manchester Black, who yeah looks very he's got the blue hair, he's got the long John Constantine trench coat, and of course the Union Jack on his chest in blue.
I'm sorry to say, sir. That's purple. His hair to me is purple.
Is it purple throughout the book or just in that one image?
No, it's purple throughout the book, or at least like a dark shade of
Oh
indigo.
man. I apologize, everyone. My color blindness every now and again catches me off guard, and
Now that's not fair because I also could be incorrect, but I'm also looking at Hat's jacket that he's wearing, and it also looks a bit purple. Not the same like color as Manchester's hair, but it's I don't know, it looks similar.
that's interesting. Now that I'm looking at him next to Superman's his blue 2 pages later, there's a scene where Superman's getting pissed at him, and I can see the purple. Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, he's got psychic abilities. I believe is his main source of maybe not psychic, maybe telekinesis. Well, maybe a mix of both. I'm either way. His mind is his power, which is I guess why he's a leader.
Yeah, we have another Tetsuo or Akira here.
Yeah, and then we have and I do like that he says like they're fans of Superman, you know. Or does he not say that here? I think he does say that in this scene.
No, he said, I don't know if he says it there.
Oh yeah, big fans.
Yeah, kidding. Big fans. There you go. Right.
Yeah. And I can't remember this other guy's name, the big guy with the chains.
The extreme version of Static Shock, Cold Cast.
Cold Cast, yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
another. This is a trope. I looked this trope up before, but another trope where it's a black guy with electric powers.
And he's covered in chains. Yeah, so that's I don't know if that's meant to be.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea on that one.
Yeah, I'm really not sure at all, but either way, they definitely I think they did a purposeful kind of contrast. Here's the more fantastical. These are what you thought the elite would look like. Now you see them, and at least two of the four just look like regular dudes, and the other two are still more played down than some of those other ones that we just saw. And so I think that's meant to catch us off guard a little bit.
Are you saying that it was a sleight of hand, thinking that the individuals who Superman first thought were the elite are these are the elite instead? Interesting. He pulled the rug out from under us because that previous like group were wearing. Not all of them were, but some of them were wearing like costumes. None of
Hmm.
these are. It's almost like this is a takeaway or at least a comment on 90s tropes with comic books and how superheroes
Oh,
were not wearing super spandex and or costumes.
yeah, and we get kind of the superhero powwow. These guys are like, oh, Soups, you just showed up. Maybe you haven't been paying attention to these guys, but those metahumans that we just took out, those are some real high level bad dudes. And if we didn't take them out, they were going to destroy Tokyo, and we're basically the heroes here. And Soups he's not having it. He immediately has like angry face, and he's like, ends justify the means, huh? And then he does like a weird oh, are you guys like the Nazis jab, which I just thought came out of nowhere and was like, okay, weirdo. Like you couldn't have an actual argument here. You got to jump right to that.
Oh no, wait a minute. He's comparing them to the Nazis. That means that he's lost the argument. He's no longer a respectable arguer. He's now banned from arguing. This conversation's over. The elite win. The end.
And it's just a false argument because, I mean, let's not forget, I mean, the Allies were out there at war killing Nazis. So his argument could have been, what are you, the Allies? Like, it's just stupid on his part.
Yeah. But to correct myself from like a few pages earlier, with the blast wave in Tokyo, I was incorrect. That was not caused by this like these metahumans or what do they call them exactly?
I think they just call them metas.
Well, they were metas, but it's just like the isolationist government faction. There we go.
Oh,
Because they
this
were
group. Yeah.
yeah the yeah those group that group. I thought they were the originators of that blast. Turns out it was Cold Cast.
Oh, okay. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
because he says higher frequency neutrino wash. Thought I had the drop on them. So he was basically gonna like blow up the city or something like that or whatever it was. No, okay, not blow up the city. But one of them had an aura that shielded them all. So it's like okay, that makes sense. And it hit Superman. That's why he went down and probably had his brain fried.
Hmm. Oh, and that's why he's making illogical, or somewhat illogical arguments. That makes
Exactly.
sense now.
Either that or it was Manchester messing with his head. I don't know, but it was either one of the two. So it's like, aha, okay. So keep that for later.
But to speed things up a little bit, I do like when we see their little home there.
Base of operations.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I have much more to say about it, but I do think it's cool, and I like the yeah design choices. But
It is a design choice, but it is nice, like their own little watchtower. But it's also a comment on the elite themselves that they've been dimension hopping, and they found that this is an actual like we don't see it, but like it's a living being
yeah,
that is their ship, and they kind of like took it over because like the whole species was in like a civil war or whatever, and so they like took it and then like ripped its heart out from them, her, whatever. They call it Bunny, so it's like I don't like because it's hopping dimensions or whatever. It's like I don't know about that. That's kind of yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. So it's I think it's a nice little. So the piece at least is meant to show how like forceful and assertive they are.
And don't they even say that like they thought that it was like a conscious being, and so they jettisoned part of its brain, or maybe it was the heart they said.
It was the heart. I don't remember like any part of its brain, but it could have lobotomized part of it.
Oh yeah, they say the heart. That's so stupid. That is like old school. Like, oh yeah, the emotional part of you comes from your heart. Like that's some really stupid stuff. They should have just said part of its brain. But yeah, they say the heart.
Unless that was
And yeah,
intentional.
yeah, they said it because it seemed like the humane thing to do to try to make it not thinking anymore.
Yikes.
Yeah, so no, they're morally questionable, but Soups is going way over the top. I mean, he seems like he wants to just fight them and yeah, take them out of commission immediately here. So,
So if you remember in All Star Superman, again, a different continuity, I'm aware, but at least like an example that Grant Morrison kind of posed with how Superman would handle another super being if they were making themselves top dog or going around and doing stuff like this, kind of being immoral. If you remember those two Kryptonians who landed on Earth after he got back from the Underverse,
yeah.
they just like up and took over what was it, part of all of Metropolis, pretty much the whole Earth. And what he did there, he talked to them. He never once punched them in the face.
Hmm.
Now maybe that's also because he was like super powered by that point, like he was
Yeah.
like, he had all that power from the sun. But at the same time, yeah, he was like there to use words first, not like go to direct violence there, or direct physical violence, excuse me.
Yeah, screaming in their face with a very threatening like posture.
Again, like if it's, I'm not, again, I don't want to justify why Superman's acting like this, but if he's passionate about the fact that he just watched these guys kill those metahumans, maybe that's the reason why he's like, why are you guys doing this? Like what why do I have to like raise my voice to you guys? But maybe that's me justifying Joe Kelly's writing here of Superman, but that's also how I saw it as.
Hmm. But yeah, and Manchester Black is like, okay, maybe in your like cartoon version of the world, it's okay to go around and solve these problems by locking up the bad guys, but we live in the real world where that's not a real fix. Like these guys can just get out, and you're kind of living in a fantasy land. And Soups doesn't like that at all. Of course.
And even Black has some, I don't know, redeeming, but he gives brief origin over himself that he used to actually admire the superheroes. He used to admire, how kind of black and white the the comics played out, basically, or how the scenarios played out. But then he got superpowers somehow and was like, okay, don't know if I agree with that, and the fact that villains monologue, and they should just be doing that in front of either a classroom or for a political campaign. Also, like his little jab, or not on its jab, but maybe some insensitivities where he goes like, I can say that because I'm 15th Japanese myself." It's
Yeah,
like,
running gag that we'll see again.
what the hey is that about?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yes.
But either way, he's like, okay, Soups, you want to just kind of scream at me, that's fine. I'll leave you to go after your type of villains, comic book villains, the ones that don't exist in the real world that I live in. You can go take care of that, and we'll take care of the rest. And he just snaps him into a different part of the world, like teleports him. And I do like that startling moment for Superman, just kind of the immediate dressing down of like you're not on our level. I think that's was well done.
Yeah, even kind of, yeah, belittling him as well for being like a visitor from a strange planet as well. So that's common knowledge, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Clark himself has probably published a lot of that history to try to inspire people.
Yeah, I'm an immigrant. I'm making a difference.
Yeah, and we see Clark. He's in a way he's somewhat humbled, and he goes back to Smallville. He's hanging out with Jonathan, trying to get some advice, I guess, or at least get some understanding, some grounding back into the what he thinks is the real world. And this is another nice little scene here.
Yeah, I don't really have like much to. I pretty much agree with you. Where the
Yeah,
next little bit is the part of the story where, which I like, which is hearing the thoughts. I kind of like how the story is not like like one day and that's it. Like no, it seems like
yeah,
it's been like months or weeks or something like that of the elite doing their actions. And I like that, you know, we kind of like take time to see Superman go and listen to different people through walks of life, discuss the pros and cons of if they're pro elite or if they're not.
yeah. And I do like that we see one person who's like, where was Superman to avenge my dog when he was eaten by the Joker? And they're like, well, yeah, he had diplomatic immunity, like Superman couldn't touch him. So they're showing some of the lack of foresight with Superman's no kill rule. Sometimes people just there's no way with the law to be able to go after them and punish them properly. Not that I think that murder is necessarily a proper punishment, but the fact that there's no punishment for some people, or punishment that they can very easily get around, especially in the superhero world, it does make his no kill rule look a little bit flimsy.
Well, then there's the other thing that Jonathan says before we keep going about
Hmm.
how, let's see, some folks, mostly loud and angry ones, others just are scared.
Yeah.
They look outside and see revolving doors on prisons, government, corruption, and maniacs hiding in the desert, children. And it's like, okay, here's the thing. That's that's the status quo, and that's what the writers like put in there.
Hmm.
So like I don't know if like if DC has a mandate of like Superman can't kill. I'm assuming that's also just how the character is.
Yeah.
But isn't Superman like, wouldn't a writer just do that where he does, like not use his authority but like prevents the people from doing that? Like again, doesn't it come down to the writers of like not choosing to kill these villains because we're talking about these comics, we're paying for these comics, so we're driving the industry for, okay, I've gone too far.
Yeah, and they don't really address this in this book. Not really. I mean, they touch upon it every now and again with Manchester Black, but it feels more just for color. It doesn't feel like it's actually making a point. But in terms of Superman as a hero, I mean, yeah, he's stopping these big threats that pop up every now and again. But is he stopping the real threats that face people every day, like something like government corruption, or prisons that just, yeah, are just bringing in these villains and then immediately putting them back out? I mean, is he addressing the real issues, or is he just putting a band-aid on a world that's falling apart? Like, I mean, with his power, he could be steering politics. Maybe it'd be more ugly if he was in there like, okay, I'm keeping an eye, and if I sense any sort of corruption, I'm just going to take you up to the roof and hang you over the side of the building until you're going to decide to give up being corrupt. Maybe you could say that wouldn't be a just use of his powers, but just standing aside and letting it go on. I mean, what really role is he playing in I mean, maybe stopping those guys who are going to destroy Tokyo. Maybe that's important too. But it does seem like he's standing aside on some major issues in his day.
It is true, but again, they're not they're not writing about him doing this stuff. Like the problem
Yeah.
is that Superman is written in D&D terms, 3.5 terms, excuse me. He's written as lawful good, and so he has to abide by the law, and he,
Hmm.
cannot, like, to be lawful or to be good. So lawful good is one of the hardest alignments to play as, because you have to live by a code of conduct, and all of there's rules. That's the point. That's what separates us from the animals, is so famously like quoted from, where, from fiction or wherever, which,
Yeah.
whatever, just basically, there's no different, like the difference between us like being barbaric and us being, I don't know, like, and enlightened, excuse me. So, like, it is hard for him to do that, but the book isn't exactly showing him doing that stuff. Like, I'm sure the guy can hear maybe like everybody's heartbeat and thus like every single like word people say, but they're not writing him to do that kind of stuff. So, am I wrong? Like, is What's like I don't know, like shouldn't they be writing that so that happens, or is it just status quo for it's like here's some detractors of Superman. Okay, blah blah blah, and then the end of the story it's like does Clark actually make a difference? Well, that's also like the next issues. Like does he actually go
Hmm.
after all this stuff?
Yeah, and we'll get to the resolution soon here, or not that soon compared to the runtime that we're at in terms of how
Uh,
many pages we have left.
do you want me to tell you how long we've been going for?
I know how long. But either way, we cut to the next page here after he's gone around, and the conflict that he's dealing with. We have the Men in Black. There's Will Smith. There's Tommy Lee Jones, and they're protecting these aliens. In fact, it seems like they're more just smuggling them at this point. Did you get this? What that looked like, by the way? Did that look
Oh
like
yeah.
that to you?
Oh
Yeah.
no! Immediately I saw that I was like, all right, well that's the what was their organization's name in the movies?
Oh, that I don't remember. It's been a good number of years.
Well, either way, yeah, it's not them. It's the DEO, Department of Extra Normal Operations. There we go. Sorry. And yeah, he's basically just stopping them from attacking the people or whatever, the smuggling, like you said, whatever it is. And then he starts narrating out loud to somebody, just like, what the aliens' origins were. And all of a sudden, the elite show up.
Yeah, he's basically bragging. He's like, if you do your proper research, you can solve a problem with anyone getting hurt. And then he glances back, like, were you listening? Look at how great I did on this job. And they're just like, okay, like, whatever, stop fronting to us. We really don't care that much. I mean, that is kind of what happens in the scene. In the scene.
See, I did what you guys asked without killing anybody. Do I get a cookie now?
Pretty much, pretty much. It's like, okay, I get leading by example, but yeah, one, he seemed really smug about it, and two, these folks already think that they've got it made. You know, they're not too worried about. They prefer the easy path.
And then it turns out that Manchester Black is like, but here's what they really are. It's a bunch of like, um, what is it? Renegade DEO agents trying to smuggle these guys out, and they're what the heck are they? Triple Black Alien Immigration Services or whatever it is. Basically, just like like weapon smugglers or whatever it was.
Yeah. Either way, just locking these guys up. There's a chance that they're going to be back out, pretty quickly, or other people of their ilk are going to be back out, and they think that locking them up isn't going to do it. The real deterrent, be getting rid of them. Is I think what the gist of that conversation was, if I remember correctly.
Pretty much, especially what Superman says, where he goes, "Then I'll stop them again, and again, and again, if I have to, until they get the message, and I'll do it without melting anyone into slag for kicks." That's the definition of insanity right there.
Oh, and this is a shame. This issue in particular, because I love Superman. We're doing this series. I've commented that I love Superman many times, but there is that side of him that does seem like you're kooky, dude. Like you don't necessarily live in the real world with the rest of us, and I understand why you don't live in the real world with the rest of us. But this issue does illustrate it, and Manchester Black is a good foil, and he does punch him in his face a couple times. It's just like your conservative weirdo-ness is not the real world. Like, come join the rest of us here.
Figuratively, by the way, punches him figuratively of his ideals.
Figuratively, yeah. The real one punching is Clark when he's slapping Hat across the face when the cameras are snapping pictures of it.
Yep. Because, okay, first off, here's the reason why. And obviously, it could have been done differently, but he's like, man, this is where Black either was bluffing, and obviously, Clark, bought into the bluff. So like, so convincingly, because he's like, all right, well, for these DEO agents or these other aliens, yeah, Hat, just, use your magic to, like, how was it? Have the earth swallow them and then drop like acid rain on their families.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah. And hook, line, and sinker, Clark is like, no, and then either punches, slaps, or whatever does to Hat, and Hat doesn't die, like, instantly. So, for, like, I guess that's a setup right there, like some sort of force field to prevent him from dying. And all the cameras then go click, no, and Black basically like has him right where he wants him.
Yeah. And then we get, I think, the only really real moment that we get in this issue with Lois, and it was I was quite happy to see this. That this was guest illustrated by James Cameron. If you're reading the footnote there, blue provided by James Cameron. It wrote.
Seriously, I
So.
thought we were just watching another like scene from Wicked City.
Yeah, either joke works. I'll take either one. But Clark is, or I should say Lois is. She's worried. She's been reading the papers. She's a newspaper lady herself. She pays attention to that stuff, and she's like, "Hey, Clark. I mean, these guys, these elite, they seem pretty tough. Are they? Could they really take you on?" And yeah, no, I think it was nice to highlight that moment.
Yeah, and I like that. Yeah, he does kind of tell her that. Yeah, they definitely have kind of got the better of me, and again questions whether or not his morals are outdated, obsolete, and if they mean anything anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, but Clark is he's got to fight. He's even looking like he's getting mad at her, even. Just this discussion himself, like, pisses him off. Like, of course I have to stand against these guys. But she manages to calm him down. But he's really got to be in his bonnet, this guy. Like, this is not the usual Clark that we see. This is more Smallville Clark. Every now and again, he would just get into just fixate on something, and just no matter what, he was going to proceed forward with his moral integrity intact, no matter how much it didn't seem logical. I was thinking a lot of Smallville reading this issue, actually.
Comes up before Smallville, eh?
Yeah, I guess by a couple months. Yeah, because Smallville is 2001 as well. Yeah.
Several months, and he even gives like the whole speech, and not his speech, but he gives her the whole like his whole breakdown of his character. People have to know that there's another way, Lois. They have to hear a voice of compassion and faith instead of spite and anger. They have to see that someone believes in humanity strongly enough to die for them as she goes. I like how it fades out in those last three panels.
No, yeah, I think that part was quite pretty. But then he decides, okay, this speech was enough. I'm just gonna, be a sneaky fuck, wait for her to fall asleep, and then just leave a letter. And I did wonder what that letter said. I can't remember. Do we see that letter again? Do we read what he wrote? Since you just read it again.
No, she in the next page. Excuse me, she crumples it, so I have no clue what she's talking about, or what. Sorry, I don't know what the letter says.
Yeah, I wondered, since he was about to go to a showdown with them, if he was like, Lois, I'm sorry, I have to do this. If I die, here's the code to all my bank accounts, or something, some sort of apology for getting himself killed.
Oh, and there's no milk in the fridge. Can you go buy some, please?
There you go. Maybe he wrote in the note, "I'm going out for a carton of cigarettes and a bottle of milk."
Oh
And that's just, she woke up, she's like, "What the fuck?"
no, it's poker night up in the watchtower, and Batman's stealing. So yeah, I gotta get up there now, eh?
Yeah, so he goes off to their. It looks like their ship is actually just like taking over half the city. It's like absorbed the skyscrapers into it from the image.
Again, it reminds me of either the Panopticon or whatever the Fortress of Solitude was in for Ultraman. The don't worry, the Earth 2 version, the Grant Morrison version, if you remember that.
Yep, yeah, I remember that. Looking down, every now and again he would just singe somebody who talked bad about him.
That's the Superman that Caleb was referring to earlier. Excuse me. And if he were like in actually confronting all this like bureaucratic baloney.
Well, maybe that guy would have taken the balance too far in the other direction.
Indeed.
But so anyway, yeah, he shows up and he's like, okay, this is time for the time for a showdown, basically, to show you guys that I'm a tough fuck and I can take you on.
My first thought, as soon as like one good panel, by the way, of just
Oh
Superman
yeah.
looking up and seeing the spacecraft, excuse me, or Bunny, pardon me, and then like the four elite right there. But my first thought was like, oh no, here we go. So for some weird reason, I have an aversion to Superman involved in city destruction, but God says how it should have ended. Point out we're all okay with when the city gets destroyed by Godzilla in any, of the later 70s versions of Godzilla. Obviously, the first one is like, it's all horrific, but like, the more it becomes absurd and, a farce, it's more just like, oh, we're okay with seeing like city destruction. But like, so that page, I'm like, really, we're gonna have another like, like battle within the city and cause like all this destruction? No, he's like, not here, please. I'm like, Joe Kelly, I love you.
Yep, let's take a trip over to the moons of Jupiter. And we know how long it takes Superman to fly here, so it probably took him about a week to get there. And yeah, that's where they're going to have their fight.
Oh, I assumed it was instant teleportation because they've been traveling everywhere thanks to Bunny, so they were able to like quickly zip over to Jupiter's moon, Io, and yeah, initiate the fight there.
No, you're right. I was just making a joke because yeah, the inconsistencies with this flying earlier, but yes, no, they do teleport over there. And I also thought that was a smart move, and yeah, removes us out of Zack Snyder territory with Man of Steel and all the destruction there. So
Again, destruction is fine in some places. For some reason, I have a problem here with Superman being like either the cause or a part of it. So it's like, oh boy,
that's a discussion for another time, considering the length of us already.
it definitely is. But we're on Jupiter's moon, Io. What do you think of Io, sir? Would you like to come back here?
I wouldn't mind it. I mean, we don't see a ton of it. We do see that they say that one of their first gigs was on the moon of Io, which I guess was why they came back here.
Indeed.
That they showed up to attack this, I guess, this egg that was about to hatch, and they just killed the baby inside of its egg thing, obelisk egg.
Yeah, I mean, either because they said Mama was like either this is mom or this is actually I guess this is the baby, but they said Mama's somewhere. So like
Yeah,
anyway, I was thinking of these things as like weird monolith looking beings,
yeah, yeah.
just because of the Jupiter connection as well.
Yeah, and it was making me think of Eternals a little bit. I know you won't get that reference, but it was also making me think a tiny bit of Nausicaa with the giant baby, or the baby giant warrior. So,
Oh, God Warrior. Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, I guess so. I never wondered if those that was supposed to be like a baby or if that was just like a newly bred, like never finished. Because there's only okay, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I know it's called the 7 Days of Fire. But was there seven of the God Warriors?
I got the sense that there was more.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Given that, like, you know, if they destroyed all of civilization or industrial civilization, then of course they probably have. They can't just be seven of them.
Yeah, and wasn't it that the humans created them as well? And then they went wrong.
Oh, that is the point. That is the point of that whole thing of like, humanity's like peak was that we created something that eventually destroyed us, a la, the atomic bomb, and it was instead it was the God Warriors.
So yeah, what happens here with their fight? You take it away.
So before they, fight, Superman basically again sternly and with a assertive look on his face, you know, says, "I have reasoned with you. I've tried to show you there's another way than the path of violence you've chosen. I'm begging you to help me with this without further bloodshed. Stand down, come quietly with me, and be judged for your actions. And maybe we can all get out of this in one piece." So does that mean Hat's gonna like um is Hat going to press assault charges on you for smacking him?
Yeah, there you go.
This is being broadcast with their, I guess, like unmanned, I don't know, like video drones, whatever you want to call it, and then the battle begins.
Yep, and Soups, he seems like he's on the losing end. He can't really take these guys, or at least that's what it seems at first. And I do like that we see a little bit of the different ways of attack. I'm pretty sure it's what's her name, Menagerie,
Menagerie.
who strikes the first blow, and she's setting up all these little alien guys, her little fighters. I think that all looks kind of cool.
I thought Black was the first one to initiate the strike because I'm not saying I can see Menagerie there in the background of that first panel, but I'm pretty sure Manchester just like telekinetically like blasts Clark backwards in through that monolith. By the way,
That makes sense. Yeah, no, I could see that. Yeah.
and then Menagerie comes in, like has her xenomorph spawn, whatever you want to call it, bat-looking creatures, attack Superman. And Superman uses heat vision on them. I was a little bit surprised by that. It's like I don't know if this is an intelligent species. This is the same. Okay, different continuity. This is the same Superman that, at least in that one series, did not kill xenomorphs. I read that issue of him and Batman teaming up to, like, face off against the aliens and the predators. I remember Superman was like, "We are not killing like these species." Like they kept, like, as insane as that sounds. It's like, what the heck?
Well, this one, he's in a rage at this point. He's like, I'm gonna forget about this in a little while,
Oh yeah, of
so I'll
course.
just go off and kill these guys.
The next issue. Anyways, so Menagerie finishes her attack, and then in comes Hat with. The punchline would have been like dropped a piano on him from Roger Rabbit, but no, it's this. I probably am incorrect in this, but either like Aztec. That's not Aztec. That's mine. You goof.
Oh yes, there we go.
Statue or whatever from Hat's hat, I suppose. Drops him on him, and then Manchester Black gives Superman a brain aneurysm.
Yeah, and I think there's some darkness to those images as well, with the blood coming out of his ears and Superman's face just like in complete like stunned horror.
Or sorry, stroke. Not so much aneurysm, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that stuff's another bit of the darkness seeping in. And then Cold Cast. I couldn't believe this line. He was like, "Cold Cast, think cracker. You know, your grandfather's back raw with hickory welts." He's like, "I can say that. I'm 15th black." It's like, okay, I get that the joke here is that he's a politically incorrect asshole. But I was like, I don't know if we need to invoke that imagery for this story. I don't know if that really added much, but maybe I shouldn't complain. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be the ignorant one here and say I have no idea what he's talking about, but all I know is it's probably not, politically correct.
Yeah, he was saying his grandfather was a slave.
Ah, okay, thank you. Did not know that. My apologies.
Yeah. But either way, so yeah, that's when Cold Cast is like, okay, let me basically I don't even know what to call this kind of explosion that he does to Clark's head, but tries to kill him pretty much.
Like this is because we've had some of the readings. There's a lot of like in some of the radio waves or radio chatter or some of the exposition in the previous pages. We've kind of gotten feats. We've heard these feats of what these guys can do. So these guys are like no laughing matter, as we said. Like their power scales are absurd. And so basically, like, what Cold Cast did is what I'm trying not to remember, because I remember like the scene from the movie. What Cold Cast did, I think, was he was trying to like basically like split Superman's atoms, so he could basically become an atomic blast.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we kind of see the aftermath of that. Like we see a satellite view of the planet itself, and there's kind of a crater there. It's like, whoa, that's insane.
Yeah, and as they're kind of enjoying the aftermath, like, oh, even no matter how much we think we've utterly destroyed these soups, they always, some piece of them survives. They're in for a rude awakening as, yeah, it turns out the whole body survived, not just the cape.
What? I thought it was a Force ghost.
Oh, it is. It turns out that's Luke. Yeah. Ah,
Ah, there you go. So he wasn't intangible the whole time. Wait a minute.
yeah, and speaking of intangible, that's how his first attack is, as we see that he's found some sort of frequency in order to, at least I think it was a frequency, I can't remember for sure, of a way to separate Menagerie from all of her alien symbiotes. And so there's a big disaster there where they all explode off of her.
Yeah, I thought he just like did a quick like supersonic punch through her, and they all bursted off of her because her. Okay, the art in this is a little weird because her head's there, and then like her feet are there, but maybe it's because like they're coming off of her, like all her xenomorphs or what do they call it? Sim beasts, as they're called, like just come off
Hmm.
of her, and I maybe can see her chest there. I don't know. I'm just like literally trying to see like,
Yeah.
okay, I can sort of see where her legs are, but I don't know. So I'm not saying it's full on Liefeld esque, but it looks to be there.
Yeah, and they say that Superman like shot her with an arrow that was poison, and the poison made the kind of biome too toxic for the Sim beasts to survive within her, so they ran away.
Ah, there you go. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the first instance of oh crap. And I think they say that he killed her. I think they say that she's dead.
She's not breathing, Black. Pam's not breathing. She's dead. And then explicit words.
Yeah, and then things start to go kooky. Yeah, and I don't necessarily know what we're seeing. So take it away. Maybe you know better than me.
Okay, well that's why we have narration, because or else you're just like, what the heck's going on here? So basically, we all of a sudden see this like dust storm of some sort that like has is coming at them, and we got a sandstorm of some sort, and um all of them are protected by, so Manchester Black's protecting Coldcast with like a force field, and then Hat has was he's got a rune field protecting him. But the problem is that it's sucking the air out of Hat's lungs.
Mm.
So apparently his rune field doesn't counter the fact that he's not got air in his lungs, because the
Hmm.
what is it? The winds are 500 miles a minute, which is insane. That's insane. So that means that he could have easily gotten to Libya that quick.
Let's not bring that up anymore. Yeah,
No, that's not bringing it up. So,
huh.
so they're cursing and a swear, and they're like, "What the hell is going on here?" And then uh, Manchester's like, "Yeah, like firebomb the entire planet after he killed Hat, and then he's gone."
Yeah, and yeah,
He did the thing. He did was he threw Coldcast into the atmosphere and did exactly what was either Atlas or Samson did to that one dinosaur being from All Star Superman.
oh yes, yes, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
where he threw him into the atmosphere, and it's like I just heard his lungs pop.
that red lizard guy. Yeah,
Yep. Thank you. Subterranean dinosaurs, whatever I forgot their names.
yeah, and he leaves Manchester Black at the end to be like, look, how does it feel to watch all of your dreams die, and how does it feel to, have your flaws exploited? And he looks like an absolute rage. He looks like a beat up asshole.
To be deconstructed.
Yeah.
Wonder if that's a little bit too on the nose.
Oh, it is. It is. That's what I thought. I rolled my eyes at that line, admittedly. And yeah, so Manchester Black is furious at him. He's like, "How could you do this? You're a hypocrite." And Soups is like, "Okay, well, call me a hypocrite. I'll just keep beating you up." And yeah, maybe you want to go more into their exchange than I do, but
I mean, the exchange is gonna happen the next, I guess, few pages. But are you talking about like what he does to Black's powers?
yeah, with the mental lobotomy, I think he calls it, or something like that.
So if you recall back in Superman Doomsday, what the clone of Superman did to get rid of that chip inside his brain that Lex put there, he does a similar thing with Black, however, because apparently he was looking inside his skull with his X-ray vision and saw that there were some anomalies or abnormalities, excuse me, that probably were the cause of his psychic powers. And so, using his heat vision, this is brilliant. I actually think he uses his heat vision, telescopic vision, and X-ray vision to basically, I'll just say it, become an invisible scalpel,
Hmm.
instant lobotomy.
Yeah, I do think that was smart. I like that too. Yeah, and poor Manchester Black. I mean, like you mentioned, we learned about a bit about his backstory. How he's he had a rough time growing up, and to see him kind of break down and cry, and he's like, how can you do this? You're Superman. You're supposed to be better than this, and everyone's watching you do this to me. And Superman in the background's just like smiling and grinning. He's like, yeah, they saw it. They saw the ugliness and anger that you had, and he looks so proud about what he did to him.
Oh, and even like they saw the ugliness of what I could do, like if I actually crossed that line, because
Yeah,
psych and scene.
yeah. Turns out, nope, I didn't cross it. I basically just tricked you. All your friends are just disabled. They're not dead.
They have headaches, really bad headaches, but they'll live. From Terminator 2, they'll live.
And even you two, I basically just gave you a concussion. You're okay. And I like the shot of Manchester Black when Superman's pointing to his forehead and he's got the tears and he's looking up cross-eyed. I think that's a little bit silly, but I like it.
Uh huh.
Yeah, and then yeah, Manchester Black rightfully kind of freaks out. I'm like, how could you do this? You try to trick me. He's getting all pissed off, and I'm just like, I again, I read it yesterday, but didn't he say like, oh, you think you can just trick me like this? I'll get you one day, a gadget type of deal.
I'll get you next time, Gadget. Next time. Um, so long as a heart beats in my chest, I'll come after you. You Ponzi twit. Sure. Okay. If you think this is over, you're living in a bloody dream world.
Yeah, and my the device that I'm using stopped working for the pages like 3 pages ago, so you have to tell me what happens in the last page.
Okay, so yeah, Manchester Black Swear's revenge, and then we get Superman being like, "I wouldn't have that any other way. Dreams save us. Dreams lift us up and transform us. And on my soul, I swear, until my dream of a world where dignity, honor, and justice becomes the reality we all share, I'll never stop fighting, ever." Fine.
Oh yes, and of course I finally got there just now. But yeah, I don't notice that Superman 1 is taking them off of the moon, and 2 in any way arresting them. It looks like he's just leaving them on that moon to go to another part of the universe to cause their mischief slash terrorism.
Well, you see, there actually was a line beforehand. Your people are fine, disabled and conscious, nursing headaches I don't even want to think about, but alive, waiting for my crew
Oh,
to get here and scoop you up. They already have a lock on your ship. You'll be surprised to know how happy Bunny was to know she was free of you.
okay, thank you. I apologize everyone for my technical difficulties here missing
That's okay.
this page. But no, that's nice to see. Yeah, I guess the Justice League or maybe just Steel is on their way to
No, they say JLA because in the conversation with that he and Lois had in bed, she mentions the JLA and the New Gods as well. So it seems as though like Superman is or at least the New Gods in this case are like on Superman's side in this one. But obviously he was referring to how the Elite's not going after both those team groups; they're going after me instead.
mm. Yeah, and that wraps up this one issue that we spent about an hour and a half talking about. So let's continue to talk about it further.
Yeah, of course. But now I will. It has come to a close. We have 1 hour, 15 seconds, 49. Sorry, 1 hour, 15 minutes, 49 seconds, 0.5 microseconds.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, that's how long it took us for the one issue. Now, mind you, this was the earlier days back when comics could be like 40 pages for one issue back in the good old days and the hard to review days. So,
Sure. I mean, there was only 39 pages, but hey, we got our money's worth out of 39 pages.
oh boy, not this again. Yeah, but what are your final thoughts for this one?
Well, my final thoughts. So a bit of backstory now. I guess I'll reveal the hand that the backstory is to all this. What I was mentioning before is that the elite came out of nowhere, being almost like stand-ins or a comment on certain new comic book that may have come out at that point. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm referring to. You probably all know this. Ladies and gentlemen, those between an affiliate. Excuse me. The Authority. The Authority is what this issue is taking aim at. Joe Kelly is basically having Superman versus the Authority, and you too can see the Authority come out in whatever few years when James Gunn's DC Universe movies.
Hmm.
Did you hear about that, by the way? That they're going to have, and not only that, the Authority has like all their, I don't know, all their characters, but is also going to have Manchester Black in it.
Oh wow, I didn't realize.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. But anyway, so the Authority came out in the 90s. I forget when. We'll maybe do a retrospective on them at some point or something like that. And it's funny because they came out with Wildstorm. And as everybody knows this now, Wildstorm and the Authority are part of DC Comics. They actually bought them around the same time, which is kind of hilarious in that sense. But Yes, because the authority was like overtaking sales on either like some DC properties. Then go up and just buy them. That's kind of very Disney esque of them. But hey,
Uh,
see, Warner Brothers wasn't playing nice with them in that sense. They decided to buy them out and then have Joe Kelly or somebody. I don't know if it was his idea or somebody else's mandate. Have Superman basically go up against stand-ins of the elites and prove to them that's like Superman's ways are the correct ways.
oh wow. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
maybe
worse.
maybe I'm paraphrasing a bit. I'll admit maybe all my facts aren't in order, but I'm pretty sure that's like the summary, the brief synopsis and paraphrasing of what happened.
Oh man. Okay. Wow. That. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the so whether everything about the elite is their own, like with the if the elites are their own group and not being stand-ins, they were crossing some lines. But I think you're right, Caleb, in that I was also thinking like Superman's kind of crossing some, or at least the art is crossing the line of, or him looking like he's crossing the line. I don't know fully if, like, on the page, for instance, if this was in text, we would get that inflection of him being peeved off or immediately drawing to being angry faced. But the art definitely is showing that he is indeed like has the skunk face.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that in the movie, the 75 minutes, they'll have a way to flesh that out better and we'll get a better sense of this Superman. Because it does. I mean, at times I do wonder: is he like, oh, you guys think you're more powerful than me, and like, fuck you, I'm gonna prove that my ways are the best ways and that I'm still the most powerful one here. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but maybe he is just repulsed by their tactics. But I don't know.
Yeah, and then he chooses to like dish out their sense of justice and or their tactics, and it's like, see, look what happens when I do it to you. Not so funny now, huh, man?
Yeah, a little bit of that. But I will say overall, I think this was mostly enjoyable. I don't know if this is in terms of the Superman stuff we read so far. This will be near the bottom, but that's just in terms of I don't feel like there was a ton here. This does feel like just a one-off issue. But for a one-off issue, I think it was perfectly passable, perfectly solid stuff.
Yeah, this to me seemed like a classic Toss episode. I don't know if you would
Mm.
agree with that, but it's reminded me something of that.
I can see some similarities. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's Superman dealing with the issue of the week, and that being or month, whatever, and that being the elite, and just popping up out of nowhere. And I guess it makes sense in the issue to do that, but yeah, where they were just came out literally out of nowhere. It's like, whoa, where is this happening? There's no like background information on them. It's like, there you go. The issue kind of explains itself. It's just like, yeah, they've been like hopping around dimensions, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of what the Authority does over in their books, but that's for another day. This is not to criticize the Authority. This is just we're talking about the elite who are based off of the Authority, anyways.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't really know much more to say. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we can't go into debate. I don't feel read up, and I don't feel I've done all my
Yes.
research on this kind of stuff of whether or not uh, Superman's relevance and his beliefs can translate to real life. It's like I believe comic books are a escapist form of media, and we need that for our lives just because at least in this day and age, I mean, obviously, like, humans got through life, well, they've always gotten through life with stories, with dreams of tales of, Ubermenches or, Supermen. Just because it we need that kind of stuff. It kind of like motivates us to do more, I guess. I don't know, not more, but it's like it's a way to get rid of the mundanity of life for a bit, and then um, go back to work. Like I believe in that stuff, and people obviously have a problem with Superman for being the big blue Boy Scout that he is, but yeah, we've seen. I'm glad that this does exist because we need to deconstruct him, I guess, to um prove his relevancy, I suppose, or at least prove that he has a point, and that's a good idea. Is if your morals are challenged, and you lose, well, then maybe that doesn't mean that you're obsolete. It just means that you now have to like adapt and I guess progress potentially. Eh?
Yeah, and if I would say there's one bit of commentary in this that I think is valuable, like when we see the random people on the street who all kind of have their element to their bloodlust, and Superman's not meeting that. I think it is very valid to challenge the bloodlust of people who just, they maybe they'll read an article about a crime, immediately assume that whoever is the suspected perpetrator of the crime, they're like, oh, send him to the gas chambers, send him to be hanged. They there is that pervasive element in our culture. So having a hero who stands against it is just like, no, no matter what, I won't participate in that bloodlust. I won't kill. I think that is worthwhile. It just at a certain point it does become like, okay, your rule is it's distracting, but
Yeah. People are so easily to jump to conclusions upon like hearing from the news, like what the story is given from the news, and not the whole story of like, listen, there's context to why this happened. It's the whole like if a kid gets bullied at school and the teachers aren't doing anything with it, and then the kid finally lashes out at their bully and punches them in front of like everybody, then they get in trouble. It's like, well, there's context to why all this happened.
yeah. And sometimes the context is just completely off base to begin with. Oh, just you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and
Oh yeah.
you got, accused of something horrible.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's complex.
Yeah, and so taking away that mob mentality, I think is always a value to these kind of stories of, yeah, a hero doesn't just kill. They try to find a better solution, try to find all the details and what they can do to make the world a better place, not participate in the violence just in, a more distant way.
That kind of is the idea of Superman, though, right? Like he's an idea, the idea of becoming better than what we could be, and that is violence. Like that. I think that's why Superman still exists. Well, that, and also because DC keeps putting money into him, so it's like, of course, he's going to keep existing. But at least the idea on paper is that all human. Well, that's the whole thing. I think in Dawn or Superman is that he is there to be an example for what we all can live up to be. But can definitely be hard. But that is the point of how to make him relatable. Sounds like Jesus. Wait a minute.
Oh no, here we go.
Exactly.
Especially considering that the two creators were Jewish. I'm sure who didn't recognize.
Now, yeah. Oh, I mean, the original Superman in '38 is vastly different from what we have
That's
nowadays. Like
fair.
it's. I think a lot of people would be a little bit more. They probably relate to the original Superman a lot more than modern day Superman. It's just funny how we've
Yeah.
like Christianified the Superman of nowadays. But I guess to say, like, again, I'm not going to compare this, but I guess with like when it comes to questioning Superman as like relevant, I guess I prefer this over Man of Steel, but maybe that's not fair.
Well, in terms of just comparing this issue to that 2 hour plus movie, oh yeah, I would take this issue any day of the week. So
And not just for time reasons, of course.
yeah, but it helps. It helps that it's shorter, but yeah, not just time for reasons. Yeah.
There's that too. Okay. Anything else left on the table, sir?
Nope, I feel like we picked the bones off this single issue pretty well.
Any leftover stuff we have or anything left on the table we'll probably address for the movie, which will be coming out next as a companion to this here piece.
Yeah, stay tuned. It'll come out probably a few weeks after this. So thank you for joining us once again for this DC stuff. Of course, we always love returning to DC, even though we come to it rather infrequently. Every couple months, I think we finally pop back in the door. But I'm always happy to be here, especially reading comics.
Yeah, I don't mind this. I don't mind because it's just part of our schedule, man. Like it's just I don't mind doing anything that we've done on this channel. So it's like it's a good. I'm glad we're like spreading it out because that leads us to do other stuff. So it's like that's a healthy thing to do. Um, yeah. Anything else, sir?
Catch us on the next one.
Thank you guys for listening to us talk about this. And I gotta ask, what really is so funny about truth, justice, and the American way? Don't really know the punchline of that. Well, I guess that's for anybody's interpretation. Peace.